where you're most concerned is where you should be spending most of your time. And by concerned, I'm not talking about worried. I'm talking about where your heart is where your time is going to go. I do not believe in multitasking. I believe in multi-filling. I am not a proponent or a believer that AI is going to replace people. None of that stuff, because it takes an intelligent person putting intelligent inputs to get intelligent answers back out of AI.
What's up? Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Big Hitters Podcast. I'm really excited today. We have Jared Hellums on the podcast. Jared's actually a friend of mine through Rise Up Kings, which is a ministry, a business that is really important and had a big impact in our lives. And Jared has an amazing story of redemption, of turnaround, and he owns a large construction company called Constructible, which has been very successful. So I'm excited to get into it with Jared today. Jared, thanks for joining us. And I'll start with our first question right out of the gate. Tell us who you are and how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, so Jared Hellums, you hit it. Huge redemption story. I had a serious drug problem for 10 years, a solid decade, from September of 97 through January of 2007. Of heavy drugs, and it was that's a whole crazy story that we don't have time to get into today, but I'll get into some of it. And the crazy part of the story is, before that I had a normal life. I mean, I was 22 years old when I first out of the military, never used drugs before, and then I just got lost. When I separated from the military, I got lost, and I lost my purpose, which was the military. And losing my purpose, looking back, it's very obvious that without that driving force, without those guardrails that I had in place, things that were never on the table before became on the table. Things that were never, the reasons I never used drugs is because of where I was headed. And then all of a sudden now they were on the table. And so it took me down a path for a decade that was the fight of my life at that point. So fought drugs for 10 years. A few years after getting off drugs, had a tragic lost my son, which is a whole another big piece to the story. And so then I'm fighting grief, fighting tragedy. Ultimately, kind of get my stuff together. Life starts to come together, and so from 2008 till 2017, ran the family construction company back in New Mexico. Lost my son in 2011. Went through the grief cycles, and then 2017 decided to move to Texas to go to work for another large construction company. In doing so, I realized that hey, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've been doing this for a long time. And it's what I really enjoy doing. And so started Constructible in 2020 in the pandemic, and haven't looked back since. And it's just
during the pandemic. I didn't know that.
Oh, during the pandemic. Yeah. So I formed Constructible like May 6th, was forming it before, hit the brakes. And then I thought, well, I'll go ahead and form the company. Got it formed on May 6th, ready to operate. But I didn't want to, I'm like, pandemic, everybody's scared, right? We don't know if the world's going to end. So I didn't make the jump, and then I got a call in August, from a previous client that I built for, and he's like, "Hey, will you come build this building?" And I'm like, "Perfect time, God's timing. Yes, I'll come build it." And I made the jump and never looked back.
Also, I'd love to just hear briefly. So crazy story. We're gonna come back to it, I think. Tell us about the training you've been doing. You're training, and it only comes to mind because I was just saying you could not pay me enough money to do a triathlon or an Ironman, but you're doing it, man. Tell us all about it.
I do it, man. So and it's something that I love. I've always been a runner. I love running. It's always been therapeutic. And so that's always been a release. But then I started to get into longer distance running, and I just had the bug. I really like the challenge. I like doing things that are hard. I like challenging myself, and it really just spoke to me. And then we went to watch an Ironman here at the Woodlands where I live, and My wife said as soon as we walked up, she said, my eyes got about this big. And she said, I know you're going to be doing this next year. And that's where I was at. And so now it's just part of my life. It's part of who I am. So yeah, I train to do Ironman, train to do hard things. And I don't just do Ironman. I do other things too that are endurance based, hard stuff. And that keeps me in focus.
Okay. I want to come back to that. But the notion of this podcast is the big hitters. So you're a very humble guy, but you're a big hitter. Tell us about the scope of work, maybe gross revenue or amount of projects in the pipeline, something to help kind of the audience understand like what Constructible is up to.
Yeah, and I got two companies, Constructible and Destructible. Destructible is, and I'll get to both of them. Destructible started this year. Me and another guy are joint majority owners. We own equal shares, and we have the most amount of shares. We just took on another investor as well. That's the smaller company. Constructible is the large construction company. Started in 2020. We're 100 million in revenue. We're in that range, and right now we're currently on 17 projects from coast to coast. Northeast boundary right now is Pennsylvania, and then I got a job in California and everywhere in between.
I remember when we first met, I asked you how you were doing that, how you had two companies and how you got to where you are. Do you remember what you told me? The advice you gave me?
No, I don't.
Got to get laser focused on your goals.
So we're going to talk about that. I mean, that's a piece. And I think where this conversation is going to go to that and back to the Ironman training, but that's 100% my mantra.
Love that. We talked a little bit right before time and energy freedom. So I had a mental breakdown from owning my first business. I picked up a copy of a book called Buy Back Your Time. I realized that I had a very profitable prison. What does time and energy freedom mean to you? And I mean, even go deeper, you could go spiritual and any sort of freedom. And how have you achieved it through your business and your time?
It's been a growth process. So like you, in 2008, when I bought the family business in New Mexico, I was literally tied to that business. I would go on vacations and I would be on the phone the whole time, mad at the family because they're interrupting my work time while we're in Florida on the beach. And when I left that and then I started Constructible, I said, I am not living that lifestyle ever again. I will not do that. In fact, I could make 10 million a year and it's not worth it compared to having that time. Like that time is invaluable. So I believe, and a lot of people believe the same thing, that time is our one perishable asset. Like it's the one thing we have that you cannot get back. And it's the thing that we should be guarding the most in our lives. I also believe that where you're most concerned is where you should be spending most of your time. And by concerned, I'm not talking about worried. I'm talking about where your heart is where your time is going to go. And so you should be absolutely dedicated to doing the things that mean the most to you. And so Constructible to me means a lot to me. The employees, the subcontractors, the projects, they mean a lot to me, but they aren't everything. In fact, I would venture to say they're not even in the top 3 of importance. So I guard my time, and just what you said, I mean, 100% I'm laser focused on the things that mean the most to me. I do not believe in multitasking. I believe in multi-filling. If I'm trying to do 3 things at once, if I'm paying attention to my emails right now while I'm on the podcast, I'm not going to do either one well.
Yeah.
It's going to show through.
Yeah.
I believe that you should be intensely focused on the things that are important to you and the things that are right in front of you in its due time.
Talk briefly, before we get into the AI stuff, talk briefly about Rise Up Kings, what it's meant to you and your experience, like how has it changed your life, your marriage, things like that?
Yeah, for sure. So I had and I still have, I mean, I still work on these issues, and it's probably one of my biggest downfalls. I've got a 10 marriage. I've got the best marriage out there. And before Stephanie, we've been married for 10 years. I was bad at relationships too. I burned relationships. I was very transactional in everything I did. And Rise Up Kings, well, first of all, God changed me. God changed my heart. That wasn't who I wanted to be. Second of all, God's brought a lot of things into my life, such as Rise Up Kings. And when I first saw the ad for Rise Up Kings back in 2020, when it was just getting going, it spoke to me. Like a lot of people that go there, it spoke to who I wanted to be and all of the things that were important to me. And so I'm like, I want to do that. Like that's what I want in my life. And I want to make sure that I'm around other people that are doing the same thing. Ironically, going back to the drugs, the reason I started using drugs in the first place was I had an older brother that used. And I kept going around while they were using. I would have never done it. It's not something that I had access to, and I never would have done it. So I believe that you take on the personalities and you take on the habits of the people that you're closest to. And so Rise Up Kings has provided that. It's a group of Christian men that are just going hard after God and going hard after their marriages and going hard about being the best version of themselves that they can be. And I firmly believe that when you do those things and you do them well, all this other stuff with business will take care of itself.
Amen. It's well said. There's so much I want to say about that, but I feel like the Lord has gotten a hold of us through that ministry, through that business. And the more I press into the community and my marriage, I feel like God just blesses my business and other things. So
for sure that's the case. I'm living proof of it. And I went a lot of people go because they're, I hear a lot of stories. I mean, I'm a coach there now, and I hear a lot of the men that come through and I hear the stories. But the majority of the guys, I would say, are either going because their marriages are struggling or their businesses are struggling. And so they're in one of those crisis points. And there's a lot of guys that go that aren't in crisis. So don't it's not everybody. But those are the stories that I hear about. And the thing is if you'll get those things right, if you will go and you will submit and do the right things, there's hope out there. There's hope.
Yeah. Amen. Love that. Okay, AI. We talked about it briefly before we got on the call, but tell us, so you're in the construction space. This is, for me, I would be like, well, that's a very hands-on thing. You need skilled laborers, you're building buildings. How is AI affecting your industry and how are you utilizing it?
Yeah, we use AI extensively, and AI is a tool. I am not a proponent or a believer that AI is going to replace people. None of that stuff, because it takes an intelligent person putting intelligent inputs to get intelligent answers back out of AI. And the more intelligent or the more thoughtful that your answer is, the more thoughtful the response is in return. And so yes, it'll do some great things. Like if you ask it to write your college essay, it's going to do it. But it's also going to be only as good as the input that you put in. And so we are using AI extensively. I use AI as the basis to write emails, to filter emails, to look for clients, look for markets, think about what those markets are, and then even to go through and check my grammar and absolutely check the form of everything that we're putting out. So it becomes the basis of everything, but it is not the answer. In addition, the thing that you hit on is we are in the construction industry. Construction is data driven 100%. There's a lot of data points out there in which AI is great at. And so it just opens the doors to all kinds of possibilities because we're dealing with millions of data sets and millions of data inputs. And AI can filter through those faster than anybody and anything ever before.
Where do you feel like you could be using it, but you're not?
Probably by asking how we could use it more.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, honestly, I have a person whose job is their single job is to go out and to figure out how to utilize it more. We've created a position just for that.
What about just broadly in the industry? Where do you feel like you're seeing it? Like, I know that, so having talked to other guys in Rise Up Kings, a lot of guys in construction, it seems like the main pain points for construction are, finding and maintaining skilled laborers.
Yep.
Project management and estimating are big ones that I've heard.
It is. And I mean, we do financial audits all the time. And so I'm using it extensively for those financial audits. One of the ways that I leverage AI now is we'll have a job description, we'll have a job opening, and then we'll go out and we'll find candidates for that job. And then obviously we're dumping a bunch of resumes in, which is only a small piece of the picture. But then we'll ask AI prior going through that hiring cycle to produce a scoring matrix. And so then we'll figure out how we're going to score for that position and decide ahead of time. And then we will go through and we will record every interview. And each candidate, if you go all the way through, you're getting 5 interviews with Constructible. And so we'll review we'll record every interview. We'll dump those interviews back into AI. AI will help us score it. and then make suggestions based on our inputs prior. And then we're getting down to some really interesting questions, because if you're on your fourth interview, I can ask it, what else should I be asking Andrew? What am I missing? How is my bias affecting my interview process? And what is it I should be asking? And so it's really just opened us up a whole new realm of how we're approaching the marketplace as far as employees go.
What is the answer? I'm so curious to know your thoughts on the skilled labor thing, because it is interesting to me knowing that the upcoming generations, probably that's not something they're really doing, is preparing to be a plumber or an electrician. I mean, I think the trades, are increasingly a great place to be. But what is the answer to the skilled labor issue?
I wish I had that answer, because it's not a now problem. It was a 30-year ago problem. I've been in this industry, I'm 50 years old. I've been in this industry for 30 years solid. And there's been a degradation of skilled labor in the construction industry and the trades for that whole 30 years. People just show up and they do a job now, and they don't care about the job that they do as much as they did back in the 80s, and especially back in the 60s. And so it's been an ongoing problem. And the problem that we have now is there's less and less people available to even go and do that. And so where we had an abundance before of people going and being employed in the trades, we don't have an abundance anymore. We have a scarcity. Anytime you have a scarcity, you create problems. You can exacerbate the problem because you're trying to do more work with less skilled people and less people, period.
Maybe we need to start Instructable, which is our skilled labor force training program.
That's great. I love that comment. I literally used that line today of Instructable because you had told me about it. And I was telling my media people, I'm like, yeah, here's the next thing. And they laughed. They got a great laugh about it.
I love that. All right, man. The fifth question is always, what do you want to talk about that we haven't talked about? You have a lot of things you're passionate about. So, the floor is yours, whether it's your training, your story, what is it?
A couple of things I'm really big on right now is one is if you want to do more, you have to do less. I had an Instagram post about this, and I just don't know that it talks about it enough. But a lot of people are trying to add more stuff into their schedule every day, every year. And that is not the answer. You need to become hyper focused on the things that really matter to you. And when you become really focused on those and you reduce out all of the noise, then you become very, very effective at those things. And so I think there's this misnomer that everybody wants to do everything. And if everything's important, nothing's important. And so that's number one. And my big thing is gosh, you got to have a moral compass and the moral base. And mine is through God. Mine is through Christianity. And all of the troubles that I've had, all of anytime that I've ever done anything, most of my problems have come because of poor decisions that I've made. And when I have the basis that I have, it just makes those decisions crystal clear and makes them easy. And not that being a Christian creates an easy life, because it's anything but I stop hurting myself.
One last question. So laser focused on goals, let's say we have growing audience, business owners, I just remember back to our first conversation, you got to get laser focused on your goals. Talk more about that. How does that work?
What I learned through the Ironman training, this is really where it came so crystal clear to me, is Ironman training is hard. And I mean, there's days that I spend 9 hours out training. And it's hard to fit anything else around that. When you have 9 hours of physical output, you're tired, you're wore out, you're sore, you're hungry. All of those things come into play. Well, the last thing that a person really wants to do is go hang out with the kids or go play with, go hang out at the pool with the daughter. Well, what it caused me to do is get hyper focused on the things that were important to me and make sure that that's what I was doing. And so what I saw was I cut out all the things that really didn't matter to me. It didn't matter to sit on the couch and watch TV. And so if I just cut that out and then became really focused on the things that were important to me, what happened, the result was my business did better, my family life was better, my spiritual life was better, because I was getting up at 4 and making sure I was through the Bible, reading the Bible and praying by 5. I had to. But because I had such intentionality about it, and there was no negotiate. It's non-negotiable. That was happening. And so the effects of that were I increased so much in those areas because I cut out so much more of my time to the other thing that was important to me. I became extremely more effective. I hear people say when I go do things like train for Ironman, that's all I do and everything else suffers. For me, it was quite the opposite. I did that and everything else actually grew because of it.
It's a paradox. That's really good. And it's so funny because right after Refinery, I signed up for the coaching and for Rise Up Kings. And I was thinking, oh, we're going to work on my business and stuff like that. And the number one thing we're working on is being present, is being fully present where I'm at. And I need that.
100%. And we're so distracted today. It's funny. I'll have something out on Instagram probably within 60 days about, hey, a 20-day challenge. We're doing something, right? And the first thing that I'm going to say is stop using Instagram for the first 20 days. Like it's so counterintuitive, but it's so true. Like you have to be present. We have so many distractions today that we end up lost for hours. We're losing hours of our days.
This has been awesome. I've been so encouraged by this, and I love your story, Jared. Thanks so much for sharing it with us, and you share it very generously when you are at Rise Up Kings events, and you share your time too. And I know you're a super busy guy, so thanks for joining us today. Any parting thoughts, ideas, anything you want to leave with the audience?
No, man, I appreciate the time. I appreciate the platform because it truly is a privilege to get to just come and tell my story. And if one person hears it and grows from it, then it's all worth it, right? It's worth all the time that I could give. And so that's what it's about.
Amen. Love it. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.